This is one of my favorite rib bind-offs when I'm working on children's sweaters. Let's assume this is the neck ribbing. Pretty small sweater here. Neck ribbing, and then I've knitted 8 or maybe 10 rows of stockinette above that. And I'll usually drop the stitch size down about 1 number smaller than I would use for regular stockinette because I want this edge to roll. And what I'm going to do is just back stitch right off the needles. I find it easiest if I bring the needles out to hold, and then I can stitch right through. So I'm coming through the back of the second stitch, into the front of the first stitch, and behind the second stitch so I can come out through the third. So I'm working with 3 needles at a time, and as soon as I have stitched back into the front of any stitch, I can drop that stitch from its needle. I'm done with it. So now I'm going to stitch back into the front of the second stitch, now the first stitch, behind the next one, and through the back of the next stitch. So I'm dealing with 3 stitches at any time. I'll do some of these the way I normally would with the needles out in holding position, and then I'll try some with the needles back and work in case it's easier for you to see it that way. So into the front of the first, behind the second, and back to front on the third. Release the first stitch from the needle and just keep repeating it. This is going to give you a nice loose bind off that will hold its shape, but you're not going to have children complaining that the sweater is choking them. Okay, so as I said, I normally work with the needles out in holding position. You may find it easier to do or to see if I leave them right back, so we'll try a couple that way as well. In the front of the first, and then back to front on the third stitch. You're always passing behind the second stitch. Release the first one. Front to back, behind, and then back to front. And I'm just using the double-eyed tool that I had next to the machine here. You could probably just do as well with a blunt-tipped yarn needle. You don't want to use a sharp needle because it will split the yarn too easily. So in the front, behind, and then back to front on the next stitch. If you sew at all, this is exactly like the back stitch that you would do in sewing or in embroidery. Now, if you do use a double-ended needle like I've got here, you can also do it this way by removing the first stitch right onto the tool and then coming through the back of the next one. It just kind of streamlines the process a little bit. And then again, take the next one right off, move the tool behind. So each stitch ends up being worked twice. So when I take the stitch off, I'm going back through that stitch for the second time. And then in through the back and out the front of a new stitch. And you can see this yarn is coming out of the middle of this stitch here. So this will be the second time that I work that stitch, and then go on to the next new stitch. Now when you get down to the last 2 stitches, all you're going to do is go through there, behind here, and then take the stitch off from the front.